We've seen what happens when those who are pushed to their limit time and time again are capable of. What about the consequences of the actions taken by those who have overcome adversity? Hey guys, Hypersonic46 here. Let's get back into the what if. No preparing, let's just jump right back in. Deep in space, what was left of the Frieza Force had gotten back to King Cold. Needless to say, being enraged is an understatement. However, King Cold is smart. He won't just find where these soon-to-be killers are hiding and head there alone. He has other plans. Taking a large spaceship, he as well as a handful of Frieza Force members fly toward a planet not far from their location they have control over known as Green Gate. There, they gather their troops and tell them that they're going to be taking out miscreants that killed his son, and that if they do a good job, they'll have a nice reward heading their way. The planet's inhabitants, the Seedrians, don't want to go off killing, but when faced with the choice of go or perish, they would rather keep their planet and lives intact. Here, the soldiers of the planet, known as the Metex, come forward. You see, when the Frieza Force first started to take over the planet while Frieza was still alive, a large group of Seedrians planned to rebel, turning themselves from plant people to metallic weapons. Unfortunately, the rebellion didn't go as they expected, and their numbers were cut down because of it. Frieza made an example out of them, but didn't outright destroy their planet or kill them all. In fact, he found their little rebellion amusing, but told them to make no mistake. If they ever tried this again, they would end up like the Saiyans and planet Vegeta. To further ensure the Metex cooperation, King Cold would take Dark Oak's family consisting of Galaxina, Cosmo, and Earthia hostage. Earthia is Dark Oak's wife and the current sovereign of planet Green Gate. Her daughters are Galaxina, the eldest sibling, and the youngest being Cosmo. Any and all attempts to go against him will result in their immediate demise. Dark Oak, the leader of the Metex, gathered his 4 generals, Black Narcissus, Pale Bayleaf, Yellow Zelkova, and Red Pine, as well as their best soldiers and units. With that, they make their way toward Earth. On the way to Earth, the events that transpired in the Metal Sonic saga would happen, with a few months afterward passing. By the time the Metex and King Cold arrived to Earth, Sonic and Knuckles would have been wished back to life with the Dragon Balls, as well as have a few months to settle down. In that time, not a lot happens, but the most notable things that do happen are that Sonic and Amy have seemingly been growing closer. They've been going off on their own for a while and have been training more often. Sonic is growing more and more proud of her progress each day. Raditz have found himself drawn to a lady friend of his own. Her name is Launch. Remember the wreckage of the Eggman's fleet during the Metal Sonic arc? Well, once the Z-Fighters left to Capsule Corp, Gun had closed off the area and began to clean up the debris. While doing so, they found a few discarded and broken down robots. However, they managed to salvage one in relatively good condition. After repairing it and powering it on, the robot states that its designation is E123 Omega. With a little reprogramming, Gun manages to get some semblance of control over the machine. As for the Metal Sonic that's been hanging around, who I will refer to from here on as Metalix, he has been mostly lounging around Capsule Corp. However, as the invasion nears closer to Earth, Metalix detects the ships closing in and rushes into the atmosphere to see what's going on. There, he sees the incoming invasion and rushes back down to Capsule Corp to inform everyone. Shadow is the first of the Z-Fighters to be alerted and goes off to where Metalix said the ships would be calculated to land. There, he started to rapidly fluctuate his energy, doing his best to spike it as high as it could go before lowering it down to get everyone's attention. Within a matter of minutes, Goku instant transmitted to Shadow along with Gohan and Raditz. Sonic did the same with Amy and watched as the ship started to touch down. Throughout the vessel came numerous Frieza Force soldiers as well as some weird looking robots. It didn't take long for the fight to start. Basically, picture the Resurrection F invasion here. Krillin and Tien would just be arriving as the Z-Fighters split up as to not get surrounded and overrun quickly. With each of them dividing and conquering, it would take some time, but they would narrowly be emerging victorious. On the main ship, King Cold is disappointed in Dark Oak and the Metex so far. The Z-Fighters are seemingly decimating their numbers, as well as the Frieza forces. King Cold reminds Dark Oak what exactly is at stake here should he fail or decide to rebel. Dark Oak begrudgingly understands and reluctantly kneels to King Cold in front of his family and his men, all of which can't help to feel bad for him, especially his commanders. Once the Z-Fighters clear out most of the invading troops, they would see the main ship landing a short distance away from them. They got ready for what they were about to face. Raditz, Sonic, Goku, Shadow, and Amy could sense a particular power coming from the ship, and they didn't like what they were sensing. It felt so familiar, yet so different. Finally, Vegeta arrived on the scene, and his eyes went wide for a second before he began laughing. He didn't want to believe it, but before the invader could step out, Vegeta informed everyone present that they were about to meet King Cold, Frieza's father. Once the ship hatch opened, out stepped King Cold. He smirked at the current Z fighters, asking who it was that killed Frieza. Goku and Sonic would step forward, both adorning their super forms. They would explain that they killed Frieza because he killed their friends, as well as destroy a planet. King Cold would look behind him and smirk before nodding his head. Before Goku could react, he was kneed in the gut and slammed into a large rock by a large yellow robot. Sonic managed to dodge a red one beelining it for him, and quickly flew to catch up. Gohan wasted no time in powering up to Super Saiyan 2, along with Raditz. Shadow and Vegeta entered their ascended forms and got ready for what came out next. King Cold shook his head, stating how Vegeta would have been better suited serving under him. Now he would die and join his father in hell. The next two robots, a pale one and a pitch black one, would rush out and barely land solid hits on Shadow and Vegeta. Both of them would look unfazed as they started to get pushed back. The last robot to rush out would shoot straight for Amy, but get caught off guard by Metalix, who would wink at her and tell her that he calls dibs on the big guy here, and that she, as well as Tien and Krillin, Gohan, and Raditz, can take on King Cold, as well as the rest of the invading party. Amy did not find that funny or amusing. From inside the ship, Earthia is watching with her daughters and is not happy with what's happening. She knows that Dark Oak is doing this to protect her, but at the same time, she doesn't want to see another innocent planet attacked and potentially destroyed. Just then, she hears a voice enter her mind. The voice introduced himself as Kami, and that he's Earth's guardian. They would talk for a bit with Earthia telling Kami that why they're here, and that they don't want to fight everyone. They are prisoners of King Cold, and if Dark Oak doesn't kill the Z fighters, he'll kill her and her daughters. Kami would tell her that he will try to help out as best as he can, and ensure that Dark Oak and the rest of the Metex come out of this with as little harm as possible. Earthia would thank Kami, and reassure Cosmo and Galaxina that everything will be okay. While Sonic is taking on Red Pine, Kami would inform him of the current predicament, and that the Metex aren't their true enemy. Sonic would tell Kami to inform Amy, Tien, Raditz, Gohan, and Krillin, since at the current moment they're the closest to King Cold's ship. Kami would do just that, which now puts this whole situation in a whole new perspective. Amy would tell Tien to come with her. Once they got a chance to slip away, they'll rescue Dark Oak's family. Her plan is to get them away, then to inform the Metex that King Cold no longer has leverage against them. While their plan is being put into action, Sonic is having a relatively fun time fighting Red Pine. The robot was fast, but Sonic was faster. To prove this, Sonic reverted back to his base form and charged his energy, causing his quills to flicker with lightning. Think of it like Super Saiyan 2, but it's not a super form. Once he finished, he shot off at Red Pine. The Metex couldn't react in time before he was gut-checked by the Hedgehog. Once he was hit, Sonic began using his Wild Rush technique and began an onslaught of attacks before spin dashing on Red Pine's chest to launch him into the air and come down with his Sonic Eagle attack, leaving a sizable dent in the enemy's face. Once Sonic began to power up back to his super form, Red Pine decided that it was time for him to go all out. Getting a little distance from Sonic, he started to grow and transform into a large, what looked to be dinosaur. Sonic smirked. This thing is just like Goku's Grade 8 form, and started flying around Red Pine. Though, when he went to throw a punch at his face, it did little to nothing. Red Pine yelled and snatched Sonic out of midair, and threw him through some rock formations, causing him to have to use his energy to steady himself. While Sonic tries to recover, Goku is trying to overpower Yellow Zelkova, though this task is easier said than done. Zelkova would pull Goku in and knee him in the gut before slamming him into the ground. Before the dust would settle, Goku would fire off a Kamehameha, hitting Zelkova, who would shield himself from the brunt of the blast. Goku would stand and smirk, as when the smoke cleared, Zelkova would be flying there without a single scratch on it. At this time, both fighters would notice Red Pine growing into his mover mode. Zelkova would gasp, watching and telling Red Pine not to overdo it or he would die. Goku would look at Red Pine, then to Yellow Zelkova, before getting in his signature fighting stance, stating that Zelkova is strong and that he might have to go all out. With that, he transformed into Super Saiyan 2 and rushed at him. Zelkova got ready and caught Goku's punch before throwing his own. Goku managed to catch this punch, and both of them stood there yelling and trying to push themselves to break through the other's defense. Goku would yank Zelkova in and turn to slam him into the ground before flying up and quickly charging and firing off another Kamehameha. It was a direct hit on Yellow Zelkova and seemingly began pushing him into the ground. However, Goku had his arms grabbed while he fired the energy beam and was yanked forward and headbutted before feeling himself kicked in the chest and launched a few yards away. He couldn't believe what was going on. Ilzokoa was way stronger than he expected. Shadow nearby would yell to Goku that he's on his way to help him before narrowly dodging getting kicked by Pale Bayleaf. Wasting no time, Shadow powered up then removed his inhibitor rings. His power skyrocketed, grabbing the attention of everyone there. Sonic noticed this and was in shock. He knows and is very well aware of Shadow's chaos form, but it seemed less chaotic and more refined and controlled. Shadow would stare down Pale Bayleaf and smirk. He then began teleporting around him rapidly to throw him off before kicking him into the ground. Once firmly planted in the dirt, Shadow would then begin shooting multiple balls of ki into the downed Metex, making sure the energy built up faster, faster, and faster, until the resulting energy looked like a dome of unstable mass. He then shot a Chaos Spear at the dome, causing it to erupt and explode. Pale Bayleaf would emerge, visibly damaged but still ready to fight. He would fly up to meet Shadow before vanishing, which confused the Hedgehog. Before he knew it, Shadow was knocked away by 2 Pale Bayleafs. He glared, then looked shocked as the 2 then became 4. They all flew in and began a coordinated attack, while Shadow powered up into his super form to keep up with all 4 of them. Finally, he had enough. He raised his ki to the maximum and let out an angered yell as he unleashed his signature Chaos Blast. All but 1 Pale Bayleaf remained, and Shadow pointed at him, stating that his cheap tricks won't work again. While Vegeta is both taking and dishing out blows with Black Narcissus, both of whom are seemingly unfazed, they would notice Red Pine growing and transforming into his mover mode. Narcissus would do the same thing, transforming and growing into his mover mode and try turning the tides against Vegeta. Vegeta would let out a loud laugh and charged up his energy, going into full power Super Saiyan. In the months that followed after Metal Sonic, Vegeta had worked and trained non-stop to master the Super Saiyan form so he can beat Kakarot and Raditz and Gohan without using Super Saiyan 2. Both combatants would go to their limits and beyond. Though it would seem like they are trying their best to rip each other apart, both fighters are actually enjoying this fight. Black Narcissus because he gets to fight where there isn't any civilization nearby, so he can go all out. Vegeta because he gets to fight a strong opponent and see the fruits of his training and hard work pay off. Narcissus would hear his comrades tell him not to overdo it since he'll die if he continues to go all out at this rate. However, he would yell at them and tell them to lay off, disregarding their pleas and telling them that this Saiyan is his and that he's not losing this fight. Vegeta would smirk. This is what he's always wanted, a true battle worthy of the Saiyan Prince. Though he would more want a battle like this from Kakarot, Black Narcissus will do nicely. Black Narcissus would open his mouth, shooting a beam to which Vegeta would ready a new move he had been working on. He would bring both his hands together and yell while unleashing a final flash to counter. The invading army would watch in awe as the clash of titans commenced. Neither seemingly wanted to admit that they were at their peak and were willing to quit yet. Dark Oak and Metex were trading blows when they both would detect Vegeta's energy rising, then noticed Black Narcissus overexerting himself. Metex looked back at Dark Oak and figured he might as well stop holding back. Bracing himself, he charged at the Metex before him and began striking him. With every strike, he flickered his super form on and off, making sure to hit with everything he got. Dark Oak would barely have enough strength to defend against this robot's attacks. He had to admit, this machine far exceeded his expectations in the concept of strength. Given its frame, he figured this bot would be fragile and wouldn't be much of a threat. Dark Oak would clench his fists, and once Metex would throw a punch, it would be met with Dark Oak's own fist. The resulting impact would leave a sizable crater in the area. They would struggle to overpower the other before both would headbutt each other. They would break away from each other, then get into a fighting stance. Dark Oak would commend Metex on his tenacity before unsheathing his sword and rushing at him, yelling that this would be the end of him. Metex would likewise rush back at Dark Oak, fully assuming his super form and catching his sword in both of his hands. They would try to push each other back, but eventually Metex would snatch the sword away and fling it. Dark Oak would let out an annoyed growl and get in a fighting stance while Metex chuckled, telling him to bring it on. While the main Metex are being dealt with, the others are trying their best to cull the invasion and keep any and all assistance from the invading force away from their friend. Krillin insists that once Amy has an opening, to go and get Earthia and her kids away from King Cold. Amy nods, and when she would fly for a couple Metex units, they would get blasted away by a Saturday crush by Raditz, who would tell her to get a move on before getting grabbed by a unit and kicked away by another. Gohan, watching, would jump in to save Raditz, who would nod to him and give him a thumbs up. They would both get back to back and begin unleashing a meteor combination attack before bouncing from their target to the others. Gohan then charged up a Kamehameha, to which Raditz likewise would ready his signature Double Sunday, and the pair would fire off at a large group of incoming Metex soldiers, creating a large hole where there were once invaders. I call it the Kamehameha Sunday. Krillin and Tien, seeing that as far as the Metex go, the two Saiyans have them covered, decided that they need to start eliminating the Frieza Force's numbers down. Since the Metex aren't really their enemy, they don't need to go after them, but instead take out the force that's got them under their control. Krillin would unleash multiple Destructo Discs, making sure to go aim for anyone in any armor that resembles Raditz or Vegeta's. Tien would use his multi-clone technique and take on more numbers, making sure to draw in more attention on himself to assist Amy in giving her a perfect diversion. Once Amy had the chance to slip away, she lowered her energy and got away from the fight before getting close to the main ship. Once inside, she looked around for where Earthia was being held. After a bit of searching, she ended up finding where they were. Unfortunately, they were with King Cold. With a quick, swift motion, Amy would rush in and grab Earthia, Cosmo, and Galaxina. King Cold would notice and shout for his troops to get them. With quick thinking, Amy would start firing ki blasts behind them to provide the perfect cover, while the others kept running. Once they were out of the ship, Amy told them to get to safety while she holds the forces off. The three Seedrians watched as Amy powered up to her super form before reverting back to normal, the energy crackling off of her body. She began to focus as her eyes then changed color. She let out a loud yell as she surged with power, her ki shooting past where it once was. As she got ready, Earthia told her daughters that they need to escape. Once the three Seedrians were gone, Kami told Goku and let him know to bring them to the lookout where they would be safe. Goku, in the middle of trying to handle Yellow Zelkova's onslaught, got his distance and used instant transmission to lock onto Earthia and appear next to her. He told her who he was and that he was with Kami. Earthia would nod and allow Goku to get her and her daughters to the lookout. There, they would meet Kami and Knuckles, who would keep them safe while Goku instant transmit to Sonic. Sonic, in the middle of fighting Red Pine, would tell Goku to find Dark Oak and let him know that his wife and kids are safe. Nearby, they would spot Super Metalix managing to keep up with Dark Oak. Goku would fly over, to which Dark Oak would take notice and fire a ki blast at him. Goku would knock it away and get between the two robots. He would let Dark Oak know the situation and offer to take him to where they are. Dark Oak hesitated at first, would accept, and soon be brought to the lookout, where he would be reunited with Earthia, Cosmo, and Galaxina. Once he realized what this meant, he would tell Goku to take him back to the battlefield. He would deal with his men. Goku would nod and instant transmit him to Vegeta, who's still going all out against Black Narcissus. Once they appeared, Vegeta would yell at Kakarot, telling him to get the hell out of his way. Goku would explain, and Dark Oak would tell Narcissus to stand down. Once both were filled in on the situation, the others soon followed suit. Black Narcissus and Red Pine returned to normal and regrouped with Pale Bayleaf and Yellow Zelkova. Dark Oak would inform the latter two of what the situation is before stating that they should pay their employer a visit. King Cold is panicking. He knows that once the Metex find out his only leverage is no longer in his possession, his life is forfeit. As he's trying to ready his ship to take off, a sword stabs into the control panel as behind him are Dark Oak and his 4 commanders. King Cold tried to plead with them, but they weren't having it. As if on cue, all 5 of the Metex simultaneously blasted King Cold, killing him instantly. They then commanded the rest of their troops to finish off the Frieza Force and to not let them escape. From the outside, the Frieza Force watched as the Metex backed off before turning on them, before they had a chance to react. Within minutes, Frieza Force troops were taken out before they could escape. After they had finished, Dark Oak and his commanders met up with the Z Fighters, along with Earthia and his daughters. Dark Oak thanked them for getting his family away safely, and that if they ever need assistance, to ask them for help, no matter what it is. Their planet will always be open to them, and Goku responds that Earth is always a safe haven for them as well. Black Narcissus and Vegeta eyed each other, solidifying that the next time they meet, there will be a clear victor between them. Goku acknowledged Yellow Zelkova's strength and hoped they get to fight again. Shadow crossed his arms and remarked that Pale Bayleaf should be ready for when they meet again, because he won't hold back, to which Pale Bayleaf would respond that he would put the ultimate life form in his place and show him who the superior life is. Sonic would tell Red Pine that he was more than what he expected, and to keep up training so that they could have a true contest of speed and strength before holding up a fist to him. Red Pine, confused at first, would give him a fist bump. Lastly, Dark Oak looked over to Metalix, then told him that next time, he would put the bot in his place, so be ready for their inevitable reunion. He would turn, letting his cape flow before entering the main ship. It didn't take long before the Metex repaired the controls. Arthea thanked Amy again for her help and sprouted a rose for her as a token of her appreciation. Amy accepted it and watched them enter the ship before it began taking off. After the Metex left, everyone went back to what they were doing prior. Sonic and Amy went back to training elsewhere, Raditz, Gohan, and Goku went back to Mount Paozu, Shadow and Metalix returned back to Capsule Corp, Krillin went to train on the lookout with Knuckles along with Tien. We now skip ahead a few years to the start of the Buu Saga. However, things are going to play out a little bit differently. Gohan starts school as a teen like in canon, and eventually gains the attention of Videl. Unlike in canon though, Gohan doesn't become the Great Saiyaman. He introduces Videl to Goku, his brother Goten, his mother, and his uncle Raditz. He does tell her about his uncle Sonic and Aunt Amy, but he, along with everybody else, haven't heard from them since the Metex invaded. Videl can't believe what Gohan is telling her, and the fact Gohan isn't making it up either is still hard to fully accept. As per usual, she demands Gohan to train her, to which he does. At first it's just the basics, though with Goku and Raditz to help monitor their training, she gets it down pretty quickly. Once Videl has flying understood, he then takes her to the lookout to meet his mentor, Knuckles. Knuckles at first is wary of the girl, but after realizing that she's close with Gohan, he starts to slowly open up to her. Elsewhere at Capsule Corp, the scientists, Ivo included, have finished work on Project Silver, and it seemed to be a success. Shadow, watching a small gray hedgehog fly around and observe the world around him every day, has genuinely put a smile on his face. It was only a couple years back that Silver started taking his first steps. Now he's flying and learning to fight. Silver would ask to train with Shadow day in and day out, and though he is hesitant at first, he can't say no to Silver. Shadow obviously has to hold back. He doesn't want to hurt Silver, but he does want to at least give him a little bit of a hard time, push him each day and every time they train. The best part is when Silver's allowed to spar against Ranch, Trunks, and Goten. Those four can't seem to get enough of wanting to play and fight each other. Who's Ranch? Well, she's the daughter of Launch and Raditz. I'm taking a page out of Moscow X's book. Also, a lot, and I mean a lot, of people seem to agree that the whole Launch and Raditz thing is the definitive relationship whenever Raditz miraculously survives and these what ifs, so I'm just gonna go with that route since it makes a little more sense, and again, it's the apparently unanimous approval. Now, before we get into the reunion at the World Martial Arts Tournament, there is something important happening. Elsewhere, on another spaceship below ground, there's an alien with a Chaos Emerald. It's Babidi and Deborah. Babidi has started to use the power of the Chaos Emerald to revive Majin Buu. Once he started to use his magic to transfer the energy to Buu's egg, something weird happens. The Chaos Emerald starts to react, and before Babidi stands a 3'3" Scion Hedgehog, who stares him down. Babidi, thinking that this ruler is here to stop him from reviving Buu, ordered Deborah to attack him. Deborah rushed at the Hedgehog and began to slash at him with his sword, to which the Hedgehog effortlessly dodged the Demon King's attacks, and threw a ki blast at his face to temporarily blind him. Once he did, the Hedgehog then elbowed Deborah in the gut and followed with an uppercut to knock him away. He smirked, then started to approach Babidi before being stabbed through the back and out the chest by Deborah. At first, Deborah laughed that this being would die, but the Hedgehog spun and kicked Deborah across the face, launching him into a wall. He then pulled the sword out of his back and tossed it aside before regenerating and continuing to walk towards Babidi. Babidi questioned who the Hedgehog is, and he responds that his name is Nazo, and that he is the embodiment of negative energy from the Emerald. Babidi, hearing this, was panicking at first, then smirked. Did this rat just say he's the embodiment of negative energy? Energy that could potentially be evil? With quick thinking, Babidi used his magic on Nazo, and it managed to work. Nazo tried to fight Babidi's magic, but to no avail, as the Majin emblem appeared on his chest. Babidi now had full control over Nazo and acquired more info on the Chaos Emeralds. Nazo would tell him everything, about how there are 7 emeralds, the Master Emerald, and the immense power they all have. Babidi, intrigued, would send out Yamu and Spopovich to gather energy from strong fighters, and send Nazo out to hunt for the Chaos Emeralds. Just think how unstoppable Majin Buu will be when he has all this energy at his disposal. The time has come for the 25th World Martial Arts Tournament, and everyone's happy to see everyone again. Though they didn't expect to see 18 and Knuckles join in the tournament. However, to the shock of everyone, Sonic and Amy have arrived to the tournament, but they aren't alone. They have a little blue hedgehog with them, which shocks everyone present. Turns out, Sonic and Amy had a kid and kept it a surprise from everyone, except Kami. Not much you can keep from a guy who can literally see everything that's happening in the world. They would introduce the child as Manic, and that he would be participating in the junior division of the tournament. Once the tournament signups are complete, the junior division of the tournament would commence. As the announcer is getting the crowd ready for the little ones to fight, Sonic would reminisce with Goku and Krillin. Seems like almost yesterday they were fighting in the world tournament against each other and Master Roshi. Sonic recalls how he beat Goku way back when, but also comments on how much stronger they all got. Krillin would add the fact that not even he knows where all their time went. First it was just dealing with the Red Ribbon Army and Piccolo, then they dealt with Frieza and Cell, then the Metex. Goku would laugh and also comment on the friends they made along the way. His brother, Vegeta, Shadow, the androids and other Shadow, and Metalix. They would look at each other and smirk before stating that they're gonna give it their all once they face each other. Shadow, overhearing them, would scoff, telling them that he has the entire tournament in the bag, and that if they truly are a challenge, he will just use the Chaos Emerald he has on him to push them back. Vegeta would call Shadow out on relying on the Emerald, but Shadow would fire back, asking the Prince what he was complaining about. If Vegeta is league stronger than him, then he has nothing to worry about, Chaos Emerald or not. As the junior division is about to commence, Silver would ask Manic about himself. Manic would flash his father's signature pose and introduce himself as Manic the Hedgehog. Silver and Goten would stare at him in awe, while Ronch rolls her eyes, calling him a show-off, and Trunks laughing on how goofy of a pose it was. Most of the junior matches goes as you would expect, until we get to the real combatants. Considering we have 5 children, one of them is going to have to take a bye. Manic offers to take a bye and sits out around watching the others fight. The first of the semi-finals is Silver vs. Goten. Both boys bow respectfully, then get into their fighting stances. Once the match starts, they immediately dash at each other and begin throwing a barrage of punches and kicks at rapid succession. The audience watched in shock as the boys are moving unbelievably fast. Silver would sweep Goten's legs, then lead with a roundhouse to the side of his face to launch him and go for a quick ring out. Goten, however, wouldn't go down that easily. The young Half Saiyan would gain control and fly back towards Silver and punch him in the face, catching him off guard, then began wailing on him before kicking him up into the air and firing off a Kamehameha. Silver would stabilize himself and use his psychokinesis to redirect the beam back at Goten, who narrowly dodged his own attack. Silver then taunted Goten to come at him, which worked. Goten would fly up to Silver, and they began trading blows, one after the other. Once he saw an opportunity, Silver would slam his fist on Goten's head to launch him downward before flying to catch up and kick him to the side of the arena before catching him with his psychokinesis, then forcing him to touch the ground, giving an audible boop on the nose once he did, earning Silver the victory. I'm going to leave it off here, because I know this is where things are going to start picking up a little after the junior division, and there's going to be a lot of fighting, so I need to mentally prepare myself to write that. So, next part is going to be all of the shit happening at once, and I hope you are all excited as I am. So, ending off here. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, I'm Hypersonic46. Leave a comment telling me how much you either loved or hated this part. And I'll see you all later. Chaos Control, like button, subscribe, enjoy the Chaos Army. See you later, guys. Take care.